Howdy to everyone. Happy Friday. Today is day of Venus, and we're moving into the moon is waxing into that Purna, yogis call it Purna Chandra. Purna means full moon phase. So we move into it starting later tonight, tomorrow through Sunday, early Sunday morning. When it's a full moon, plants, animals, if you have pets at home, you'll see, and humans have a tendency to get a little busy in the mind. So we want to tame the mind, make the mind. So thank you all for joining. Today we discuss our question and answers. If anyone has any question from the philosophy that we've studied so far, feel free to go straight ahead.
Teacher, can I ask a question?
Yes. Go straight ahead, Susan.
Yes. So I have a question. I think when we were talking about the Book 3, Mantra 15, you mentioned that whatever the universe there is outside of us, there's also this universe inside of us. I just wanted to see if you can talk a little bit about how the planetary system within our physical body, where we can find the kind of connection between the outer universe and the internal universe. And my second question is kind of related. You've also said something along the line of everything. Yeah, I think it's the inner universe is basically a reflection of the outer universe. So if in the outside of the universe there are so many souls, then where are they also reflect in my inner universe? I hope I express myself clearly.
I think I understand the question. So let's go to the first question. If the micro universe is a replica of the macro universe, then how are the planets that are out there represented in our micro universe? I think that's what I understood. Is that the right question? Okay.
Yes, that is. And also now that I just spoke it out aloud, and I also wonder if that's kind of related to how in the Bhagavatam that it talked about within within Vishnu, his body, different parts of his body is related to different planetary systems, and whether that's kind of also reflecting our physical bodies.
Okay, let me go to the first question, because there's a whole lot of questions just now. So when we have a body that's put together, you look at someone, you see their physical body. So it's made up of elements that we find in the outer universe: earth, water, fire, air, ether. Now, each of these elements are controlled by a planetary vibration. Within your body, the fire element, right? So that's controlled by the sun. Within your body, there is the water element that's controlled by the moon. So you can see how the moon connects to us, right? the ocean. Like we live in, right now I'm in Hawaii. So Hawaiians, they follow the moon, right? They know when to fish, when to not fish, when the moon is waning, when the moon is waxing. It affects the water element. So the earth element, we're influenced by the earth. We're living on the earth right now. So that's one way. Then there's other ways. As you're breathing, right now you're breathing through one nostril more dominantly than the other nostril. So initially we say if you're breathing through your right nostril, that's the sun. If you're breathing through your left nostril, that's the moon. That's not wrong, it's just an incomplete statement. Because the yogis, they go even deeper and then they recognize within 1 minute, you're breathing one of the different elements. 20 minutes earth, 16% water. So when you're breathing that different element, that tells you that's the planetary force, which is influencing your micro universe. So that's another way the yogis understand how the planets are affecting us. And then you're referring to in the Bhagavatam how Vishnu how it describes, yes. So because we're in replica, right? So I think it says there like this eyes are the sun and moon, the ocean, the blood is like the ocean, the mountains are like the hair on the skin. So so those are expression of it. And because we're in this universe, it's just a beautiful way the Bhagavatam explains it, how our micro universe, being a subset of this whole macro universe, how we have so much similarities. Because all these elements that we're borrowing, they look solid, but they're not. They're vibration. My skin is vibrating. My water is vibrating. If you peel, the blood will be blowing up and down. The air, when it comes in, the lungs, it's moving. So it's all vibration and look solid. But then when the Atma is also Satchitananda, and divinity is Satchitananda. So when it describes Vishnu's form, it's, oh, this is I'm a part of that. So yes, so we are within this universe, but we are connecting to the planetary forces through the elements, through the breath. So, and then there's a whole chakra system in the tantric practices. Different chakras are governed by different planetary forces. So when the prana is flowing in one chakra, all that will tell you, but you can figure all that out just from the swara, from the breath, from breathing practices. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So the next time you read the Bhagavatam, it's, oh yes, my bodies you're all elements are in it. It's a good, yeah. I think it's a beautiful meditation, that part of the Bhagavatam. So Susan is referring to a book called Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a book which is a concise version of the 4 Vedas. Like I explained, the 4 Vedas, I think Greg had asked maybe a month ago, what are the Vedas? So these are wisdom of the heart, knowledge of how the universe works. But I explained to Greg that even if you live to 100 years and you start Sanskrit at 2, you start to read Sanskrit, the books at 12, you will only read like maybe 1/4 of the Vedas if you reach 100 years. So after Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedas, wrote those 4 books, he then wrote the Bhagavatam. And the Bhagavatam he wrote when he was much more spiritually evolved. So the Bhagavatam, I read the Bhagavatam it took me 2 years to read the Bhagavatam. And I've read it twice. The second time I read it, I was just reading the mantras. The first time I was reading all the description of it and like the Prabhupada's purpose. But so it's amazing. But so if you ever get your hands on it, yes, the Bhagavatam. Good. Thank you. Anyone else? Another question?
I have one, Yogi Churu.
Go straight ahead, Helen.
Last night when we were meditating, we were planting a sankalpa, and you had said either asking for guidance from something in the past or something in the future. So I planted one that I was anticipating to be something for the future, and yet the dreams that I remembered or caught from last evening were all about the past. So am I to think that perhaps the answer to the future is in the past?
That's one way to look at it, but that doesn't mean, remember, you're still working through space and time.
Yes.
So maybe tonight you might get a dream of the future, and maybe next week. So it might not happen immediately.
Right.
That just tells me there were some karmic seeds you need to burn out, because a dream, that's what we're doing. Like, it's deep within our subconscious mind, so they're making their way up to the surface, and as they come to the surface, and you catch it and you remember it, it's like they evaporate out of your psyche. So I like to use the example of your boiling water. The water is like that, and then as it starts, then you see bubbles at the bottom, and then the bubbles start to rise and they come to the surface. So when we're catching our dreams, or when thought patterns come into our psyche when we're meditating, they're coming up at their own will, and you are aware of them. That's one way we are able to evaporate them out of the consciousness.
Okay.
So yeah, so if you didn't have a dream of the future, don't worry. Maybe tonight you might have it, or maybe tomorrow. But because you planted it, it will manifest. It's just a matter of space and time, right?
Okay.
And I'm glad you brought it up, because back to Susan's answer, the author of the Vedas is called Vyasadeva. We refer to Vyasadeva as Trikalagya. What does that mean? He's one of the persons who mastered that siddhi. He could see past, he could see present, and he could see future. So when he wrote the Bhagavatam, he's writing of Kali Yuga 5,000 years ago. He's writing about Kali Yuga. So another person in the culture who is a Trikalagya is Arjuna. If you read the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is confused and he's having this dialogue with Krishna. And at one point in the Gita, of the conversation, he asks Krishna, I heard about your universal form. Do you think I can see it if you think and Krishna, sure, I'll show it to you, I'll give you divine eyes. So when Krishna gave him divine eyes, it says, Premanjana Bhakti Vilochanena, open his eyes with love. Arjuna became a Trikalagya, and then he saw the future, he saw the past, he saw that he won the battle already, he saw evil, he saw everything. And he was just like, this is too difficult for me. So that's another person who is able to see past, present, and future. So we have that ability in us. We just have to ask. So when you plant that sankalpa, Krishna will reveal it. He might not reveal it. Possible, he might reveal it to you like he did to Arjuna, but he will reveal it to us in our pockets that we can tolerate, that it won't overflood us. Because after a while, Arjuna said, please get it away from me. I don't want to see it anymore. It's overwhelming. Yeah. So, yeah, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Anyone else? Next question.
Hi, Yogi Charu. So
hello, Jenny.
Hi. So Yoga Sutra doesn't talk much about food, although ahimsa automatically translates into vegetarianism, but they don't go into specific about what to eat, what not to eat so much. But then when I read the Science of Self-Realization, it says very specifically to not eat meat, no eggs, no fish, no intoxication, no teas, no, So
Yeah.
how important to cross the line or cross over the line?
Beautiful question. Food is important, right? So in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali doesn't touch yogis call it ana, food, much. Like you say, there's no part of the sutras where he spends like one or two mantras on what type of food intake. He doesn't do that in the Yoga Sutras. He just included in the ahimsa, right? That's where, and just one mantra he left it. But other yogic texts, Hatha Yoga Pradipika, in it Shiva goes through the whole process. He breaks it down for Parvati. If you read the Garanda Samhita, Garanda breaks down the type of food, if you know. And in the Gita, Krishna makes it, Krishna touches it briefly as well. Krishna just kind of explains the yogic lifestyle when he breaks it down. Under ahimsa, don't overeat, don't undereat. Krishna breaks it down, and yeah, so they touch it because, and they briefly, right? But all the books that I've read on yoga, they only touch it briefly until you start to go to the Ayurvedic texts. In the Ayurvedic texts, that's where they're going to spend a lot of time, a lot of mantras on what type of food to eat. Food that has mucus, creates mucus, food that creates bile, food that creates this. So in the Ayurvedic part of the Vedas, they spend a lot of time on food intake. So the yogic texts, they generally just give you don't overeat, don't undereat. Eat when the sun is up at the zenith. Other times, then they also teach, the yogic texts will tell you time to fast. So when they were written, they were with the understanding that you should eat non-violent food. It was already like, it's like in our culture, if I tell someone, I'm just trying to look for an example, which is something, it's so second nature in our culture that you can say something and it's inferred to, right? People know it. Like, okay, let's say you live in New York City. When you want to go to the Empire State Building, you tell the person, when you get to the top and you're breathing peacefully, make sure this, that. So the person, you don't have to tell the person, there's two ways. There's the stairs or you take the elevator. If you take the elevator, you'll be able to breathe peacefully. If you take the stairs, you won't be breathing. So there's an underlying tone in the yoga culture from the Ayurvedic aspect of Vedic texts, which stresses a lot about food in the different modes. Yes, Krishna mentioned it in, like, I think chapter 17 or 16, food in the mode of goodness, food in the mode of ignorance, food in the mode of passion. So briefly they're there, but the Ayurvedic texts, they go very deep into it. And they explain the type of food to raise your consciousness and different organs and this. So in the yogic text, they only touch it briefly, but it's an underlying understanding that as a human can question that life is precious, and human can understand the law of karma. To every action, there's a reaction. And so we want to minimize our karmic reaction that are negative as much as possible. So there's some animal slaughter, animal killing I will do because it's just the way I'm engineered, or the way the world is engineered. When I get in the car to drive, guaranteed I'm going to run over some ants, bugs, snails, right? I can't run from that. So there's some reaction to that, but it's not willingly done, right? Just by us breathing, we're breathing in microbes and killing them. The heat kills them. So there's a certain level of karmic reaction of ahimsa, which we can consciously refrain from. And that is taking the life of another living entity, which is to the degree which is more evolved, which is very evolved, right? So animals are there for our protection. And so we should protect them. And normally in our culture today, people eat meat because it's imposed upon us, right? I grew up eating meat. That was my culture. It was imposed upon me. But as soon as I started to question life, then it made sense to be a vegetarian. It came from within me. The knowledge came in, that's gone. But then I realized it, became vegan. And then I was able to make those steps in a country which I think besides me and my friend, we were the only vegetarians in my country. 300,000 people. There's no vegetarian restaurant in my country back then. It's not like America, right? You can become a vegetarian and go to a vegetarian restaurant. In Belize, doesn't exist. Back then, now there's maybe 1 or 2 vegetarian places, but because it's a Caribbean culture, a lot of seafood. So I grew up on seafood, but then at a point I realized, oh, I could respect the ecology of the animals within the water. So yeah, so a lot of times the philosophical texts, they only mention it briefly here and there. But if you go to the Ayurvedic text, that's where they'll go deeper into why animal slaughter is karmically bad, not just for you, but your mind. If you want to make the mind peaceful, if you put violent food on the tongue, it's going to make the mind a little violent. And, that's why a lot of anger and tension are on the planet, wars and things, because we don't see animals as spiritual beings, right? We just see them as products to exploit. And sometimes if you have a pet, right? The pet brings out the love in you that's in you already. So now the pet can inspire you to then broaden your expansion of compassion. So like I had dogs, I had cats when I was growing up, but I was still eating chicken. Like, in other words, I love my dog, but I was eating chicken and barbecue and everything. Like it's just the culture I brought up in. I didn't expand my compassion, but I love my dogs. And I remember we express wash down the dog because the dogs in the Caribbean, there's a lot of ticks, right? So I remember so the love that I grew up, and then as I expanded, then I realized, oh, wait, I not only should love my dog, I should also love the chicken. I should also love the fish. I should also love. So that comes gradually. And that's just a evolution, right? Anyone can get there, but people will get there at their own evolution, right? I think in a country like America, it's well documented, vegetarianism, right? It's how healthy it is, so much benefits for it. But still, people, you see the masses look at it and look away. So it's just a matter of time for something in their psyche to, oh, wow, I should open my heart space a little more, and then my mind space will become more peaceful. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yeah, so in all the philosophical texts, they just mention it briefly, because part of the Vedas is the Ayurveda, the healing aspect, and that's where they spend a lot of time explaining food. That's why. Yeah. Does anyone else have another question?
Hi, Yogi-Charu.
Aloha, Vesela. Vesela lives on the Big Island.
Hi. I'm reading The Science of Self-Realization after you spoke about it briefly a while ago.
Yeah.
And I'm having a hard time understanding.
Which part? Not the whole book. Which part?
It's the whole book. I somehow intellectually I cannot agree with some of the things that
the author says.
Yeah. So
that's Go ahead.
It almost like triggers me, and I understand that trigger, but I'm like, how do I deal with it? Yeah.
That's a good statement, Miss Ella. When Patanjali mentioned it in the Yoga Sutras on the, I think, the third or fourth mantra. He says you need to do a little austerity. And when he makes that, he just briefly says it, but when you meditate on that word, tapasya, it means it's going to confront so much of our psychic conditioning, right? Tell someone, let's go on a fast. How many people look at you, Marcella, and says, yeah, right? You can tell someone the fast is going to help to remove this disease, that disease, this disease. Even though they know it's good for them, no one will embrace it easily because it takes effort. So as we start to grow on the spiritual journey, there are going to be ups, there are going to be downs. And as our philosophy starts to evolve, it's going to get jolted because of the way we were brought up, right? My philosophy being from the Caribbean, right? That's how I think like a Caribbean person. My whole way of thinking came. And you know what? My culture is going to look, if you meet someone from Belize, you know what they're going to tell you? Belize is the best place. They have the best people. Our philosophy is the best. It's amazing. You go any part of the planet, everyone is going to say their country, their culture is the greatest. It's amazing. And when I look back at my culture, I'm thinking, man, there's so many faults in our culture or the way we think and act, right? But so that's the first. So the yogis understand as we start to evolve philosophically, our causal body, that's the first layer which covers the Atma. The causal body has to mutate, but it has to mutate gradually. It's an art, gradually. So when Prabhupada was teaching, he knew he only had a few years to live on the planet. So he makes a lot of the statements like this. Because he didn't want to bother it for people. He's gonna die soon. And so he was like, he gave it, and so I do agree. I know what you said. Some of it, when I read it too, it jolted me. I remember like, oh wow, it jolted me too, because I had to reshape my Caribbean philosophy. It was like, oh, I know it's good for me, but I wasn't ready to evolve into it. So it took me a few years before I can get the concepts. So yes, so I know what you're saying, but I remember he was almost close to passing away, and then he just didn't want to water it down because a lot of people, Indian gurus, had came to the West and water it down and make it beautiful. Yeah, you can smoke hashish. It's okay to drink. It's okay, and and also it was around the summer of love, free sex. Yes, you can have free sex, and you're still spiritual. No, he didn't bluff it to try and get followers. If he had done that, he could have had many more followers, but he was not into followers. He wanted to present the philosophy as pure as possible because he knew he only had a short time. But because he did it so purely, it comes across. So, so you have to look at it from that angle. Because if you pick up another Swami book at the same time, it's completely frivolous, fluffy, So as we evolve now, then realize, okay, I am going to gradually evolve. Put it like that. We don't want to see ourselves like a shooting star like this. We want to evolve like this, gradually. And I think, Jenny mentioned it. Jenny brought this up, I think, was it last time? Or just like the food, let's say the food aspect, right? So in the sutras, right, Patanjali brings up the 8 limbs. And I see a lot of time people who try to teach the yamas and niyamas, they take it out of context and they'll try to look at it fanatically. As I've understood how the mind works in this day and age in 2020, right? Patanjali, Srila Prabhupada, they're writing at a plane where people, we call it Agyata Sukriti, where people who are already in the mode of goodness can follow. But if you look around today, most of the planet is governed by Rajas and Tamas, passion and ignorance. So when we look at the yamas and niyamas, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, it's a little challenging for us. So instead of trying to do those, follow those, and you're not evolved to that plane and you try to artificially do it, what happens? The mind becomes split. One half of my mind is saying, no meat eaten. Another half of my mind says, man, I loved it. One half of my mind says, no smoking. Another half, I want a cigarette. So the mind starts to split. So before we split the mind, yoga is supposed to make the mind harmonious. So know where you're at, see the goal. Now let's go at it gradually. Don't try, but the issue with, I think with us, a lot of time people in the West, we want to reach somebody, we want to get enlightened when? Yesterday, right? And we want to compete with someone else too, but you can't compete in yoga with anyone because it's an evolution of your mind and consciousness. So you look at it, okay, know this, know that. How about instead of me saying know this to myself, let me make small adjustments in my body, in my mind, in my day-to-day life. Make smaller adjustments gradually, 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 gradually. Then it becomes, the mind doesn't go through this schizophrenic split harmoniously, right? Someone comes to you, Yogi Charu, I just read this practice celibacy, I'm going to give up my girlfriend. I'm like, no, that's, your mind is going to crack. No. Why not just wait, right? It's amazing. A lot of time people read these books and they misunderstand it. We want to go practice celibacy, want to go to the Himalayas. Okay, you go to the Himalayas right now, I guarantee you, after a few days or a few months, you'll run right back here because we want it too quick. It has to go gradually. I have a karma, which I came to yoga very young. Like I can be truthful. I had a girlfriend that I was like 14, 15, but we were never intimate. There were no intimacy. So when I found yoga, it was so easy to move into that direction, right? And did I overcome it? For a while, I think, oh yeah, I'm going to be like my guru, a lifelong celibate. By the time I was like 23, 24, I remember it came back. So how to deal with it in a mature way? We can't suppress the desires, but we can refine the desires gracefully. So it'll confront our philosophy because of where we come, but don't try and do the end result overnight. Let's evolve into it. So I like to tell students, if you're drinking 5 days a week, bring it down to 4 in 1 year. Then in the next year, bring it down to 3. Bring it, and then gradually overcome it. And that way you'll get experience from within. And just add yoga to your daily practice. Add your meditation to your daily practice. And as you add those to your lifestyle, you'll naturally start to see, oh, this affects me, this affects my mind. Oh, I ate a piece of caffeine, a chocolate before I meditated. Can't get a piece of, so okay, yoga is an experiential journey. The philosophy is there to show us where we should go. But rather than you just use it as philosophy, theoretical genius, the rishis, they want us to become practical genius. Experience it, then it is your experience, right? A book is there to establish it. That's the culture. But let's have experiences that allow us to grow gradually. I hope that helped you, Vesela.
Thank you so much. I feel so much better about this. Thank you.
Yeah. And remember, you're reading it now when you're in your almost your third decade, right? I read it when I was 1.5 decades. In other words, my senses were still, so for me to live it, it was like easy. But someone who's like past their second, their third, it's a little more challenging. So I understand. Yeah. Thank you. Any other question? One last question, anyone? And don't be shy, we're all friends, we're all evolving together. We all have questions in life, right? And the question you ask benefits the whole group. Okay, if we don't have an...
I'm gonna ask the last question about the
Sure.
Chitta Vritti, the second chapter, the Sutra, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha.
The second mantra, yeah.
Yes. So what I understand is vritti is the thought that comes and goes, millions of thoughts that we have, right? And then the chitta is the vessel that holds the thought.
Yes.
So
That's
the
the
chitta
mind.
itself is not the thought. It's not.
No.
They translate into a mind, into
mind.
It includes intelligence and
Gents,
ego.
yes.
And so all this the perception, the quality that we can perceive this prakriti. But the chitta, we understand that we need to purify our senses to bring the sattvic energy to feed the chitta, to hold the chitta as clear as possible, as pure as possible.
Yeah.
So
yes.
I just wanted to know how clear chitta and then the vritti, like a relationship.
So we have the physical body that you can see right now. And then we have the astral body or the subtle body. And the subtle body is that part of us which has the mind in it, the chitta. Another part of the mind, higher refinement of the mind, is the buddhi, the intellect. Then even, right? So the mind is very vast. So when thoughts come in and out of the mind, thought patterns, vibration, that's the vrittis coming into the chitta. So now when your thought comes into the chitta, the intellectual part of the chitta, the buddhi, will kick in to see if this thought is pleasant or not, to see if I want to entertain this thought pattern or not. So then what Vesela was just asking, right? Like I was explaining, it confronts our philosophy. That's the third layer. That's this, we call that the causal body. So we have the physical body, we have the astral body, and we have another body, a subtler body, which covers the Atma causal. That's our philosophy. So the I, so once the intellect is purified, the intellect will be able to look at thought patterns and influence the mind to control, work with this thought pattern. This thought pattern is triggering action. Because remember, every thought that comes in is coming in with rajas, right? It's kicking in action. So we have to purify it with the intellect. Do I want to act on this action? Do I need to subdue this action? Do I want to? So the intellect and the mind always working together. And that's part of the chitta. So we got it, the mind and the intellectual part. And they're neutral. The mind is neutral The intellect is neutral. The intellect is getting spiritual wisdom from the Atma. So deep down, we know when we do something right or when we do something wrong. And then the intellect gets more and more refined as we start to grow. We get wisdom from outside, that then we get more knowledge. Then we connect it with our spiritual wisdom from inside. Does that make sense? Okay, yes, it makes sense. That's how we grow philosophically. So bridges will be coming in the mind, thought patterns from sight, hearing, smelling, tasting. That's all thoughts are. All the thoughts that are coming in from these organs making contact with objects outside. And then they come in, and then they're either in the mode of goodness, passion, or tamas. But they're generated with action. And then we act upon them. If we intellect kicks in, okay, this is a good one. Then that influence the muscles, the nerves for your body to move and go pick up your glass of water. You know, everything you do, it's all the actions we do are first experienced in your astral body. Everything we do outside. So those thought patterns, they come into the mind, the intellect refine, the witness, this Atma put spiritual wisdom in there. We look at it, and it happens so quick, right? It happens so quickly. We don't understand how it until you start to sit down in meditation. That every one of us are planting desires. Like if I plant a desire in my mind, I see a cup of water. Oh, I'm thirsty. I tell then I want to drink the water, but it happens so quick. My nerve, my brains, my muscle, I pick that, but everything is in there. So then another British comes in. Oh, I see a photo. My eye makes contact with, oh, the beautiful blue water of Tahiti. Oh man, I want to go to Tahiti now. So it creates, right? So your sense organs, what you hear, you're listening, you're walking the street, and then someone played a music. Oh wow, it triggered some kind of experience, a feeling in you. That's how it works. But then we have to make sure they don't override us from the higher intelligence from inside, coming from the Atma, looking at it, taming it, question it. And that's why yoga is we don't react. We go through experiences in a mature way. The only way, and that develops by your regular meditation. The more you sit down, the more you calm down your breath, you look at thought patterns, how they come. Charu, is this really a desire that I should go manifest? Should I try and manifest this desire? Then I contemplate, is it going to be beneficial for me, myself, and I? If that's the answer, 99.99% of the time, that's a desire I should delete. If the desire I contemplate comes in, Charu, you want to do this, and if I contemplate that desire and I see it's going to benefit me, it's going to benefit another living entity, it's going to benefit the planet, if it's going to benefit, that's a desire you want to manifest. So, but today we don't stop to sit back to look at how thoughts come in and ask and look at it from an intellectual and a spiritual platform. Today, people are just pulled by the senses, just running around, and a lot of people start to live in regrets, right? Oh, if I coulda, shoulda, woulda, if I can turn back the time. I remember one friend asked my teacher that, if I can turn, my teacher used to say, don't try and turn back the time. The present moment exists right now. From today, let's make positive actions in our life. From today, forget the past, let the past sleep. Let's make positive sankalpas from today. And that the only way that you can do it is when your spiritual intelligence, watch the thought patterns and dissect it, and then you act on it.
What about the ego as a part of the chitta?
So the ego is not part of the chitta. The ego is part of the causal body. That's the way we have our philosophy. So that's the philosophy has to become spiritualized. So once the philosophy is spiritualized, we will have a pure ego. If the philosophy is not spiritualized, our ego is neutral. Our ego will then be influenced from the mind. And that's when and the senses. And that's when we say someone has a false ego, right? If you walk on someone is, oh, I am great, I am this, and they're rude, I'm obnoxious. That's the false ego acting out. That same person who's acting out through the false ego, if they get good association and good wisdom guidance, they can purify that to their true ego. Oh, wow. I am no greater than any other living entity. I am not inferior than any other living entity. We are all spiritual. But that takes work. To get through our false ego is tough. So that's why we have to go deeper into the spiritual wisdom to purify the ego. Otherwise, false ego is a lot of time when you see people arguing and stuff, it's amazing. It's just one false ego clashing with another false ego. And no one is ever happy. So how to remove that tension? Because within everyone is a beautiful divine being. So how to remove that tension is one point in these people, in these two persons' evolution, nature humbles them. Nature humbles every one of us. There's one atheist. I remember one atheist showed up, met a guru in India. I said, I never bow down to any deity. I don't bow down to God. I never do, because in your culture, you go to a temple, and it's one atheist. And the guru, oh, no need to do it now. You don't need to bow down to God now. In time, God is time, kalasmi. In time, your spinal column will start to hunch. If you live to 200, you will eventually bow down to God. So time will eventually, so it doesn't matter how great we think we are, time will humble us. And if we accept the humble pie, question life, then we'll able to get over the false ego. Because when someone has the false ego, simultaneously God is still in their heart. So God wants them to get purified, but it's just they're stubborn, and it's a thick layer. The chida is just so covered, so thick. But hopefully they get the association of someone who is evolved, and then it rubs off. And as it rubs off, they start to question themselves. One thing I've learned in yoga culture, never ever try to change another person. You only try to change yourself. Work on yourself. And as you work on yourself, you can become an example for others. And people see an example. That's what inspires. You are a parent, you're a child, you're an inspiration. You have a certain duty to inspire people from the pure ego, right?
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So let's close the eyes once for 1 minute and bring the spine tall and become aware of your breath at the entrance of the nostrils. Feel the breath coming in and out. And in the center of your mind, imagine the beautiful full moon. And on the full moon night, the yogis practice gratitude meditation. Grateful for what they have been gifted in the last 15 days from the new moon to full moon. For the next minute, a japa with gratitude. As you inhale, mentally repeat, I am grateful for my. And as you exhale, choose one of the many gifts you've been given: the brain, the tongue, the eyes, the legs. Every exhalation is a different gift. After the next exhalation, let's chant the together once. Om. palms to the heart. Lower the head towards your higher self, the spiritual being towards Paramount, my Lord, in the heart. Grateful for each and every one of you. Grateful to the breath, to the moon, to the sun, to the earth we're living on. Namaste. Lift the head, open the eyes. Hari Om Tat Sat. Have a beautiful full moon weekend. Keep your mind peaceful as possible. Thank you. Thank you so much, Helen. Thank you, Helen Lee. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Subin. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Susan.
You,
Hari Om Tat Sat.